Hey guys, Nikki here, and we're back with another tutorial today. I've been getting a lot of questions on the basing for my Seraphon army, so I'm going to take some time today to record my process and show the different materials that I use for them. I actually really hate basing, I'm just here for the painting, but I wanted to find something that was very easy that I could do across the whole army, get it done really quickly, but still kind of keep the theme for my Seraphon. So this is what I've come up with. We'll be combining a texture base with some different scatter materials to make it super easy to do across the whole force like that, so if that's something you're looking for, you can take this and apply to other materials. If you like this tutorial, make sure to subscribe for when we add more. We also stream over on Twitch, so if you want to come hobby with us there, I'll put the link into the description. But for now, let's go over to the hobby desk and dive in. Before we get started, here's a closer look at the bases we'll be making today. I have my Troglodyte and Bastillodon I finished a while back that have all the scatter material and also some laser cut plants that I found that I picked up just to add a little bit more to the larger bases. They're fun because you can pop them out and pose them, add more paint, texture to help them blend in, but I'll show them a little bit later. They just add some nice variety, so I wanted to make sure I include them for the tutorial here. I have them mixed in within my army for the bigger bases like these. So here is the finished bases. To get started, we take our base. We'll make sure to prime it for the texture and any paint to stick. I always use this surface primer from Vallejo. I airbrush this, but you can hand paint it as well. Then I grab all of our textures, starting with this dirt texture paste from Huge Minis. I have a link and a code for Huge Minis. If you'd like to check them out, I'll put that in the description. I also have this Bog 4-in-1 scatter from Huge. These scatter have a mix of different static grass, flocking, and loose foliage that work really nicely for a natural base that's really easy. I also use this fine husk peat from Rival Crafts. They're a UK-based company that has a lot of preserved materials and different textures that I really like. I also have a link for them. I'll put it in the description. With this, we also move on to the little laser cut plants that I mentioned. These are from Gamer's Grass. I grabbed a variety for my Seraphon just so that I can mix and mash and they can all fit together. Then looking at our tools, I have this dental tool. It is just a metal little scraper that I use. You can also use a coffee stirrer. And I grabbed an old brush just for our glue, or if we want to use it for the texture paint. Speaking of glue, we have some PVA glue. I have Woodland Scenic, but the Elmer's School glue would also work, just a PVA glue that will dry clear. You also need some super glue if you're planning on using the laser cut plants. This one's just from Bob Smith Industries that we'll be using for that later on when we finish the base. With all of this gathered, let's dive in. Alright, here is the base that I mentioned I primed. If you do want to go ahead and lay down a base coat of a color to tow through the texture, make sure to do that first. You could do a brown in this case, but for me, I go straight in with our dirt texture. Using that dental tool or coffee stirrer, I pull straight from the pot and onto the base, making sure that I get good coverage as I go. You'll see that there are little peaks that form as I do the different passes. I try to smooth these out kind of as I go. It won't make as big a difference on this base because we are going to be covering it with the scatter. But if we're using a texture paste like this and you don't want those peaks, kind of smushing them down can make it look a bit more natural. Again, I'm not worried about it for this one, so just trying to get good coverage to make sure that the base doesn't poke through all of the texture paint here. So here I am spreading the rest of the texture paste along the base. I'm going to speed things up here just for the sake of time. Once the base is covered, I like to use a cheaper plastic container just to place the base in and keep my workstation clean. So I grab that here, and I throw it in so we can grab our first scatter material. The first one that I'll be using is that peat husk from Rival. I like to do this directly onto the texture and give it a really good coat to cover most of the base. If you're worried about texture coming off, maybe you travel a lot with your miniatures, you can do a glue layer between this, so the PVA glue. For me, I go straight into the texture. So you can see me here taking that peat, rolling it around all of the base, giving it a good coat so that it covers most of it, making sure to kind of focus in some areas and to let it gather. So putting that down now. You can see the container here is catching anything extra, so if you're worried about workstation, having the plastic container nearby is handy, especially for these scatter materials. So with our first coat, close that up. And then I will be switching to that bog scatter from Huge Miniatures. So here is that bogs mixture. When we open this up, I do make sure to mix it because some of the materials are a little bit bigger. They can kind of settle while it's sitting. So give that a good mix just to mix up all of the textures, get some of the small and the big textures all in one. And I sprinkle this right over what we just did with the peat. So this is going to fill in any other cracks in between the peat, the first texture, trying to fit anywhere where the dirt texture is still showing. And yeah, just kind of fill in from what we've done. You can see me kind of picking spots here to add a little bit extra. Making sure to close it up so we don't get texture everywhere. And with those down, I actually go ahead and just pat both of them into the dirt as it's drying. So with this, it'll kind of collect as it is drying to secure it. You can see me just patting it, turning it as I go, making sure we get it all into the dirt texture to kind of dry it together. Now, if you're worried about how much this will stick, like I said, you can do a glue layer before this. For me, I haven't had any issues with this, so I've continued to do this. And you'll see at the end that when we do a little bit of glue later, it'll lock a lot of this down. This is just kind of the preliminary patting down for all of the materials. So continuing to pat down the materials, I also decided to go ahead and gather what has fallen into my container, pat that right on top, just so we're not wasting any of the materials. But there it is, and I will let this sit overnight to dry and cure. Alright, the next morning we're back, ready to lock all of this scattered down. Do a quick check. A little bit you can see comes off, but for the most part it's held pretty well. We're going to take another container and just get a little bit of water here at the bottom. Basically, it's enough to cover the bottom. And then our PVA glue. So again, I've got the Woodland Scenics here, or if you've got the Elmer's glue, either way. Unfortunately, I have to fight the glue a little bit here. It's not cooperating here as we're recording. So getting a little bit into here because we're going to thin the glue to go in between all of our scatter. So I go ahead and I mix this up. You can see you've got to stir to really break up the glue and let that water in. I decide that I need a little bit more. So adding that to our container. Mixing that in together. You kind of want this consistency here to just break that glue up enough with the water. Once we've got this thinned, we go directly to the base. And you're going to see that I apply this directly to the base, and I'm really kind of patting it in so that it collects in between all of the different scatter. So especially around some of the bigger pieces, I'm adding a little bit more glue, just getting in there to cover every little bit and keep all of this scattered. I'm going to speed this up just in the interest of time. Watching me stab this giant base over and over isn't the most interesting, but trying to get it around as much of the scatter as I can. I know this looks a little scary right now with the white color of the glue. This will all dry clear, so don't let that bother you as you are working, especially in the areas where you have a little bit more of the glue and it's a bit thicker. It's definitely a little scary as you go, but trust the process, it will dry all clear. So here is me applying more of our thinned PVA down to the base. As I'm continuing on the base, you can see that there are a few times I have to kind of redo my glue mixture, and that's fine, but trying to get these last little bits here. I like to do one final pass at the end too, just to make sure that there's any gaps that I miss, especially around the edges. If I need just a little bit more love there, I'll put a little extra glue and in spots with the bigger pieces. Alright, it is the next morning and we're back to look, and now all of our glue is dry and cured. You can see it is dried clear, so don't have to worry about any of that white color from the glue, and look, little to no material coming off, so we're all locked in. Which means it's time to add our miniature. This Stegodon was painted years ago. I have a few touch-ups that I want to do, so I'm not quite ready to glue him just yet, but here is a look with a miniature on top. I checked the placement and I decide you'll probably need one of those plants or two from Gamer Grass. So let's look at those. I'm going to be using the Dumb Cane here as one of the ones I picked up for my Seraphon. So with these, it's a matter of just removing the little supports around the leaves and popping them out for use. So you can see me here. Usually I can get these out just with my hands, but in this case, of course, because I'm recording, I have a little trouble, so I grabbed the X-Acto knife. Just running the X-Acto knife along the cut edges and where the supports are will take those off. So here I am trying to get one of these little leaves. Of course, like I said, being difficult because they know I'm recording. You can use these Kind of throughout the army, they have different sizes, which is why I chose this one for our video. You can see these large leaves that I'm working on now. There are also these smaller ones. By layering these different leaves, you can get some really cool effects. So here I am finally getting this first one out. There it is. With these, you can also bend and fold them. We'll come back to this, but I wanted to show it here as I cut it out so you can bend the leaves to different patterns. Here's where I decided to go ahead and grab that smaller one, even though they're being difficult. And with the smaller one out, you can see here, it will fit really nicely into the center of the larger one. So you can create different layers here and kind of build them up as you go if you get one of these with the different sizes here. Like I said, you can kind of bend these into more natural shapes. I will say it takes a little bit of work to get them to stay that way. They tend to want to snap back to their original kind of position as they were on the sheet. So you kind of have to work with it. The material does have a little bit of memory that you have to work through. So you can see me here trying to bend some of these to look a little bit more natural. So just make sure to play with them, kind of keep them in the same spot for a little bit. It'll take a little bit of work, but once you kind of get them manipulated where you want them, they will stay. So I'm just working my way around the different leaves to try and get that. If you do decide to layer them, again, I'm not ready quite to glue this down yet, go ahead and glue that center into the larger leaves there. And then when you're ready, it's just a little dab of super glue onto the base, and you can place the plant just like that. So when I'm ready to glue my stegodon, I will put a leaf or a few more like that. And with that all together, there is our finished base. Super easy to put together for an army, especially for someone like me who really hates doing basing. Really easy to swap out for different materials. If you enjoyed the tutorial, make sure to like and subscribe for more. Follow us over on Twitch if you want to hobby along together. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.